Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy Thelestane Girth's final message. You have sealed your fate. Asterisk, the alien armada arrived at dawn, and the ocean held its breath. Ships like obsidian cathedrals drifted into low orbit. Hushed, implacable. Knives of night against a blue and gold horizon. Civilians stared upward. Soldiers checked straps. Satellites blinked their last. Then, across every frequency, civilian, military, encrypted, a voice broke through. BEGIN. Priority. Earthcast. 001 Source. SOL. Terra. Humanity content. Final MESS age. The voice was calm. Female. Precise. Record begins. To the hierarchy that shadowed our world, this is Earth. You have sealed your fate. A hush rippled through the planet, through the fleet, through the bones of everyone who could still feel fear. The hierarchy did not reply. Their doctrine forbade improvisation. They analyzed, then acted. And still they listened. My name is Dr. Nora Halley, the voice continued. I speak for 8 billion. Living and gone. 3 months ago, we issued you every chance to withdraw. You remained. You set your siege. You underestimated our species, our patience, our rage, our love. On the tarmac outside the abandoned cape, Captain Elias Cade watched the clouds curdle around the invasion's shadow. He held a battered field radio, though the message was everywhere. In airwaves, in optic cables, in the hush between breaking waves. He closed his eyes. He could picture Nora's freckles, the way she tipped her head when she was thinking, the crooked smile she'd worn when she said, "If this works, we won't need heroes. We'll need listeners." Elias breathed out. The world breathed with him. Nora's voice went on. You studied our weapons. You did not study our vows. You calculated our range. You did not measure our reach. You mapped our cities. You did not map what makes us refuse to kneel. A blinking cursor, a living heartbeat, pulsed on every screen. We built this message as a mirror. Look into it, Nora said. If you see an enemy, understand. The reflection sees you too. If you see cattle, then your eyes have already failed you. If you see neighbors, we may yet share a dawn. Silence. Then the line everyone would remember. Stand down and live. Press on and learn why the universe whispers. Never corner a human home. In orbit, the hierarchy's first executor shifted his mandibles. The doctrine said, cut the head, harvest the body, salt the soil. Yet the voice carried a temperate gravity, like a lighthouse beam steadied by a storm. Unnerving. Timer, he rasped. Not a subordinate answered. 17 minutes, High One. 17 minutes until the kinetic lances fired. 17 minutes until the doctrine repeated itself in iron. 17 minutes until humanity's last bluff, or last prayer, collapsed down at the cape. Elias clicked his mic. The light on his radio flickered, then steadied. He looked at the ocean again, at the pale line of the horizon. Nora, he whispered, we're at 17. The message continued, measured. Ruthless kind. We will not beg, Nora said. We will not kneel. But we will offer one last choice. A pause. A quiet breath. A human breath. Commas, dots, and everything between. Choose, she said, or we will choose for you. The executor lifted his hand to signal the first volley dot, and far below. A slumbering machine turned its face toward the sun. To be continued in part 2. The mirror we built ... 3 months earlier. The night tasted like copper. Cities dimmed their lights to save power for launch systems, hospitals, and the net of telescopes we called the halo. People whispered in stairwells. Priests held hands with atheists. Arguments paused, not because we suddenly agreed, but because we decided to live long enough to keep arguing. In a bunker beneath the Cape, Nora touched a glass panel, and the room warmed to her biometrics. Project Meridian, she said. The wall bloomed with orbits, error bars, and a braided cable of light wrapping Earth like a silver scarf. It wasn't a weapon, not at first. It was a mirror, a lattice of microsatellites, vaulting sunlight across shadow. 1 billion glitter gnats, each with a shard of a plan. Elias stepped in, shoulders damp from the rain. They'll break it, he said. They can try, Nora answered. But mirrors don't just reflect light. They reflect intent. If they attack in one pattern, the array pivots. If they jam, it sings around the jam. If they close, it closes too. Not perfect, just stubborn. He smiled despite the bone-deep fear. Like us. On a steel table lay a child's drawing, a stick-figure family beneath a yellow circle, and 2 words in block letters, "Stay brave." In the corner, a small lopsided. Elias swallowed. You keep this here? Reminds me who invented hope, she said. The plan was not elegant. It was human. The mirror would focus solar glare to blind sensors. Charge coils to flick message packets like stones across a lake. Pulse shadows where corridors of atmosphere could turn cold and thick. All defensive until at WASN single quotes T. Nora brought up a second screen. Meridian has a companion, palimpsest, which is everything we wrote over everything they think they know. They scrape our languages. We seed grammar traps. They spoof our maps. We layer roots only we can read. They time our habits. We change our clocks. You think that buys us enough? It buys us choices. And choices, Elias, are the one currency tyrannies never budget for. The recording booth was small, almost tender. Foam walls, a single soft light, the microphone waiting like a confession. Nora pressed record. She spoke as if the aliens were in the room. She didn't shout. She didn't plead. She put commas where she meant to breathe, and she put periods where truths needed to stop. Fate isn't magic, she said off mic to Elias. It's the sum of decisions. Theirs, ours. He nodded. And if they choose wrong? She looked at the old drawing again. At the sun. At the... Then the mirror focuses, she whispered, and the world answers back. Outside, the rain thickened. The ocean lifted its shoulders. The satellites waited like chords on a guitar, ready to be strummed. The doctrine above would demand a kill. The doctrine below would demand a dawn. The recording ended. Nora took off the headphones and set them down as if returning a crown. Send it when I say, she told Elias. How will I know? You'll feel it, she said. The moment when all our ordinary courage turns into something else. Now, in the present, 17 minutes shrinking, the mirror shivered awake. System, meridian, alignment. Phase a solar intake. Rising, angle, 23.5, threshold. Giarian in orbit. The hierarchy's instruments spiked. Glare, static, phantom currents. Interference, the analysts hissed. No, the executor said, cold. Resistance. He raised his hand again. The first volley armed. The sky gathered its blade. Elias looked at the ocean, heard the mirror hum, and pressed the button that sent Nora's voice everywhere. Choose, she said, to be continued in part 3. The enemy who listened. Asterisk. The executor's carapace shone like wet stone. He had risen through ranks by never hesitating, by never asking questions with question marks. Yet the message threaded through his command chamber like smoke that would not disperse. He tasted it. It tasted. Like choice. Proceed, he ordered. But one of his strategists, thin, ash-colored, with antennae that trembled when he thought, spoke up. High One. Permission to model the phrase. You have sealed your fate. The chamber chilled. It is a threat, the executor said. It is more, the strategist replied, too quickly, too bravely. It is a verdict. But who sealed it? We, by coming? Or they, by building? Or both, by meeting here, now? Doctrine did not entertain philosophy. It carved worlds into meat and columns into totals. Still, the executor's gaze shifted to the windows. Below, continents. Clouds like fingerprints. He had studied humans on tapes, the arguments. The music. The laughter like broken glass that somehow healed the cut it made. They fought like wildfires and rebuilt like ants. Ugly, fascinating, dangerous. The message resumed, gentle, merciless. If you think fate is a cage, Nora said, you do not know us. If you think fate is a sword, you have not met our shields. If you think fate is a river, you have not seen where we choose to build our bridges. Her grammar was clean, her cadence steady, her calmness exact. The room felt a little larger each time she paused. Her words were not simply heard. They were held. High One, the strategist said. We've entered Meridian Scatter. Their mirror net is reconfiguring. Our lances may miss. Lances do not miss, the executor replied. Numbers disagree. Then make better numbers. The executor glanced at a piece of human debris caught in a maintenance vent. A plastic charm, yellow and smiling. A simple circle with eyes and a curved mouth. It had drifted up from some raid. It had no tactical value. He had kept it without knowing why. Now, for the first time, he felt it watching him. High One, another voice said, quieter, we can pair the lances with field razors. No rebuild. No survivors. Clean. A perfect solution. A wicked one. He could feel doctrine purring. On Earth, Elias paced the edge of the launchway. The mirror sang brighter. The halo's math reached into the cold. The ocean stacked its waves, like soldiers standing taller. He wanted to run. He wanted to pray. He did both in his own way. He ran his hands over the rail. He whispered, stay brave. Nora's message shifted. You landed in our orbit, she said. You chose algorithms over awe. You measured our heartbeats from 1,000,000 miles, then said, numbers suffice. They do not. Because numbers can't tell you why a father sketches a star in a child's notebook and writes, for when the sky is too heavy. The executor's mandibles tightened. He had a father once. He had a son once. They were not part of doctrine. He had set them aside to fit inside the armor of authority. Now the armor pinched. High One, the strategist whispered. There is a secondary band beneath the message. We think it is a key. To what? To everything. The executor lowered his hand. A ripple went through the fleet, a fraction of a second. A breath. A comma. Hold, he said. The word stunned the chamber. It also saved, for a heartbeat, an entire world, to be continued in Part 4. The key beneath the words. Asterisk, asterisk. Nora had hidden the key where enemies would hear it and friends would understand it. It was not a cipher you broke with brute force. It was a syntax you learned by listening. Each pause, each period, each semicolon, each tender dash, every carefully placed comma, they guided meridians shaping like conductors guiding strings. To the untrained ear, eloquence. To the trained hand, a switchboard. Listen closely. Nora had told Elias, weeks ago, the night the lights flickered and the wind pulled at the bunker doors. Language is leverage. If I breathe here, 1,000 satellites pivot. If I place a pause there, coils charge. Another breath, and they release. We'll fight with grammar. Will they notice? He asked. If they do, they'll admire it, then fear it, then copy it, then misunderstand it. That is the danger. That is the plan. Now, Meridian responded. The mirror pulled sunlight into delicate blades, not to cut, to carve lanes of blindness, corridors where no lance could find purchase. Palimpsest layered decoy cities over deserts. It lifted rivers into places where no river flowed. It wrote the word safe over places we needed to keep breathing got in hospitals. Generators steadied. In shelters, children slept without waking to the scream of batteries failing. In the Cape, Elias felt the floor hum like a living thing. Execute pattern Halley, he said. Palimpsest, Halley, running routes, shifted lure vectors, active shadows, DPLOYED up above. The fleet saw ghosts. It saw 10 Earths, then one, then none, then a pale circle with a smiling mouth that was not a star, not a weapon, not anything they understood. The executor hissed. Focus. The strategist's antennae trembled harder. High one, the messages said structure. It's teaching us, or warning us, or both. The message continued, sweet and terrible. You came with lances, Nora said. We came with lullabies and launch codes. Bread and betrayal. Mercy and math. We are not pure. We are not consistent. We are human. Our contradictions are not flaws. They are engines. Another pause. Another pivot. The mirror fed the halo. The halo fed ground stations. Ground stations rose like choir lofts, their voices stitched together, city to town to ship to farm, into a single singing. The note, if you could call it a note, was the exact frequency where their targeting arrays always blinked just a bit slower. We had found it by listening to them for months, by learning their habits, by noticing their sloppiness when they were certain no one could resist. High one, the field commander insisted. Authorize the razors. The executor looked at the charm again, the yellow circle, the impossible curve that implied joy in a universe that did not promise it. He had collected trophies of victory. None had ever smiled back. We raise, he said. We inherit ash. Doctrine. Doctrine does not bury children. Silence. A tremor. A fracture forming in a lifetime of obedience. On Earth, Elias felt his radio heat against his palm. A new line crept into the message. Not Nora's voice. A live overlay. Him. He swallowed, then spoke into the open world. This is Elias Cade. To anyone listening up there, we are not asking you to love us. We are asking you to choose life over a story that ends the same way every time, with ruins, with regrets, with names carved into metal and whispered once a year. He paused because pauses matter. He placed the period because endings matter too. Stand down, he said. Please. The mirror shifted to pattern Cade. A fallback Nora had teased him about. Name it something less dramatic, she'd said. No, he'd replied. The grid tightened. The glare sharpened. The blind lanes interlocked like fingers clasping. The executors stared at the screens. Fate did not feel like a river anymore. It felt like a crossroads. High one? The strategist asked. Softly the executor opened his mandibles to answer. To be continued in Part 5, the decision and the trap. The word the executor finally chose was small, precise. Scandalous. Wait. A hush spread through decks and corridors. Wait was not a doctrine word. It implied humility. It implied curiosity. It implied the possibility that this battle was not merely a calculation. It was a conversation. High one. The window closes, the field commander warned. Their scatter strengthens. Then we learn faster, the executor replied. Model their mirror. Model their pauses. Find the hinge. He did not know the hinge had already found him. Meridian's third function was neither light nor shadow. It was gravity, the smallest nudge, the gentlest hand, applied where arrogance had made the enemy careless. Kinetic lances primed along trajectories the hierarchy had used 1,000 times. Why change a path that crushed every world before? Because this world had planted magnets in the empty air, had threaded Lagrange points with whispers, had rehearsed the sky like a violinist rehearses scales. Nora had called it the field of forgiveness. Elias had raised a brow. She'd smiled. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's a different kind of force. Now, as the executor said wait, the mirror said welcome, not to the invaders, but to their momentum. Fractions of degrees adjusted. Fractions of seconds drifted. Fractions. Seal.1 lance fired prematurely, biting into a corridor of cold that twisted it by half a hair. Another launched a heartbeat late, grazing a shadow that tugged it sideways. Individually, anomalies. Together, a pattern. On the beaches of the old world, elders listened to radios. In tunnels beneath mountains, teenagers clutched each other's hands. In orbit, the fleet noticed, too late, that their certainty had started to slide. Correction. The field commander barked. Hold, the executor repeated, quieter. More certain than before. Nora's voice returned, and it was no longer just a message. It was a mirror held up to a species that prided itself on inevitability. You think we built a trap, she said. We built a test. We believe in second chances. Not because we are noble, but because we've needed them so many times. Stand down, and this sky becomes a harbor. Press on, and every force you brought to bend us will curl back to face its maker. She breathed. Meridian flexed. The halo whispered to the deep network. Palimpsest burned away decoys where civilians might be. This was not genocide. This was geometry with a moral. The executor felt the chamber's air shift. On one screen, the lances drifting like angry comets toward positions they had never visited. On another, an overlay he did not understand, a map of human pauses, commas, dots, rendered as vectors and arcs. On a third, that plastic smile, faint in the reflection of a window, watching him choose. High one, the strategist said, voice breaking. If we abort, we live. If we fire, the array will repurpose our strike. It will not aim at them. Where then? Where weapons are born. He meant the factories, the forges, the doctrine course, the places that taught children a single story about power. He meant home. Elias felt the wind change. He gripped the rail. He thought of Nora's hands. He thought of the N in the corner of a child's drawing. He spoke softly into billions of ears. Do not make us do this. Silence. Then, in the far, cold dark, one captain, not the executor, not a lord of anything, powered down his lance. On his ship, a crew murmured like people waking from a hard dream. A ripple of no moved through the fleet. Small, brave, real, the field commander snarled. Treason. The executor watched that lone ship dim. He remembered a son. He remembered the day he put doctrine above him. He remembered how heavy his armor felt ever since. Order? The chamber asked. He tasted the air. He tasted the word he had never said aloud. Stand. To be continued in Part 6. The word that changes. Wars, asterisk, asterisk, down. The chamber did not explode. It exhaled. Every console, every crew, every soul that had waited a lifetime to be told only forward felt the first sanctioned permission to stop. Some wept, some raged. Some slumped in a relief so pure it frightened them. But the command carried the executor's seal. Doctrine trembled, did not break, then began, inch by inch, to learn a new verb. Across the fleet, lances powered down. Field razors cooled. Target locks softened. Glass turned back into sand. Meridian adjusted instantly. The mirror released tension, the way a fist unclenches after a fight that didn't happen. Sunlight rested. Shadows lifted. Corridors closed like healed wounds. On Earth, 100,000 held breaths became a shout. Elias sagged against the rail and laughed once. A rough, cracked sound. He clicked his mic. Nora. But the message was still playing. The key still guiding. There was one last clause. One last period to place firmly and kindly. If you choose life, Nora said, you will see what we do with victory. We will not mock you. We will not parade. We will not carve your shame into our stones. We will offer terms. We will demand amends. We will forbid the return of the blade. And then we will teach. And then we will learn. The executor closed his eyes. He could feel the doctrine beneath him try to writhe back into shape. Old habits grow teeth. Old stories have gravity. But the new command was real. He opened his eyes and looked at the strategist who had risked a question. You saved us, he said. The strategist shook. You saved us, High One. From ourselves. Signal our ships, the executor ordered. Full retreat. Full public address. I will speak. He turned to the window, to the planet, and to the smile hanging in the reflection. He spoke in the plainest words he could summon. To Earth, he said, across every frequency, we withdraw. We will face consequence. We will unmake what made us cruel. We ask for terms, not mercy. A beat, a comma, a period. Elias lifted the radio, but he did not need it. The message carried him. The world carried him. He spoke to the sky. We accept your withdrawal. We will publish terms. We will hold you to them. We will also hold ourselves to the people we promised to be. He turned to the team. Cut palimpsest to defensive only. Keep Meridian warm, not sharp. And please, someone tell the hospitals. Cheering rolled across continents. Bells rang. Boats blew horns. A woman in a stairwell kissed a stranger's hand and said, We live. A child held up a homemade sign to a camera, Stay brave, and added another mark. In orbit, one captain refused. He spooled a lance in secret. He wanted the old story. He wanted the old ending that made sense to rage. He fired. Meridian felt it as a shiver through bone. The mirror did not punish. It corrected. Gravity took the lance like a potter takes a spinning wheel and guided it. Gently, away from cities, away from seasons, away from everything except the factory that had welded his hatred together, that far away. In a cold belt where doctrine bred like rust, a bloom of light unfolded. Not a flower. Awake, the executor bowed his head. He did not argue with geometry. He did not defy the lesson. He looked at the charm one last time. He did something no rank had ever permitted. He smiled back. Earth, he said, prepare to receive envoys. The message ended. The key completed its circuit. The mirror rested. The halo dimmed. The world listened to be concluded in Part 7, after the final message. The day after the sky learned a new word, the sea smelled like rain, not iron. Meridian floated easy, like a net set to catch light instead of knives. Palimpsest rewrote itself into a library. Routes turned into roads. Decoys turned into schools. Shadows into shade. Nora stepped out of the bunker for the first time in days. The sun was a soft coin on the horizon. The air had that fragile quality you get after a storm. everything cleaned by force. Everything deciding what to do next. Elias met her on the launchway. They didn't speak at first. They listened to gulls, to generators winding down, to 1,000 radios flipping from news to music. He held out the child's drawing. "Someone sent the original," he said. She laughed. "We'll have to find them." "We will," he replied. "We promised terms. We promised better stories." Nora looked up at the sky, where the fleet had hovered. "Do you think they'll keep their word?" "Some will," Elias said. "Some won't. That's not unique to them." She nodded. "Then our fate isn't sealed. It's drafted." "Drafted," he agreed, smiling, with clean punctuation. Terms arrived by noon. Reparations. Dismantling of field raisers. Opening of doctrine cores to public audit. Education exchanges where children could ask, "Why did you believe that?" And adults would have to answer, or learn the courage to try. Earth published its side too. Amnesty for those who stood down. Trials for those who refused. A ban on weapons that punished the future for the past. There were arguments, of course. Humans argue as a way of breathing. Some wanted blood. Some wanted to forgive so quickly that memory itself would bruise. Nora moved through those rooms like a metronome. Comma, she would say when voices rose. Period, when deals needed to end before they slipped into poison. Semicolon, when two truths needed to stand side by side, held, not crushed. That evening, a broadcast went out, not a final message. A first invitation. The title card read, Dominion, Rise of Humanity, School of Listening Session. 1. Stories that don't end in FIRE. Elias looked at the camera and spoke with the same plain grace that had steadied a planet. To every neighbor who almost became an enemy, he said, "We have space at our table. Bring questions. Bring grief. Bring the tools you used to build walls. We'll use them to build bridges, or we'll melt them down and try again." Somewhere beyond Mars, a small transport peeled from the retreating fleet and turned back, lights bright, weapons cold. On board, the strategist. A handful of crew who wanted a different word than victory. In his pocket, the executor had slipped the plastic charm, the smile, and a note with 3 symbols. The strategist did not know their meaning. He would ask. He would learn. He would teach. At the Cape, Nora and Elias finally sat. They shared bread. They shared silence. They planned the hard, boring work that saves worlds. Audits. Committees. Curricula. Repair. There would be no parades. There would be long days with small wins. There would also be nights when the ocean glowed, and a child somewhere pointed up and said, "That's the mirror. It keeps us safe." And a parent would answer, "It keeps us honest." Nora touched the microphone one last time and recorded a coda. "This is Earth," she said. Our final message was never a spell. It was a sentence, subject, verb, choice. You have sealed your fate is only true when you stop listening. We did not. You did not. So we begin again. A pause. Then, with a smile you could hear, end of transmission. Start of conversation. See you at dawn. The ocean breathed out. The world, bruised but unbroken, found its rhythm. The mirror gathered sunlight and laid it gently over cities and fields. And somewhere in the dark, a doctrine opened its first page and wrote, in clean, careful letters, Fate, unsealed.